Assalamu alaikum and peace and blessings, family. Welcome to the State of Black Businesses this morning on the Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. This morning, we're going to be talking about accountability. And I believe as conscious entrepreneurs, emerging leaders, those of us with supreme wisdom that are going into entrepreneurship and doing for self, it is our job to shed light and shine a light on certain corporate principles that need to be tweaked or that need more attention, among other things. Okay. So this morning we're shedding the light on corporate accountability. So like, subscribe, tell a friend, grab your coffee. I got mine. And let's enjoy this beautiful conversation and start breaking some of this collective mentality of lack, want, need. Let's bust all that up. Okay. Let's get that stuff up out of our DNA. Let's get that stuff up out of our mindset. Okay. Let's improve our energy and change our relationship with money. So we'll be back. Give me about 3 or 4 minutes. And we're going to talk a little bit about corporate accountability.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to the State of Black Business this morning on the Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. We got a name change coming soon. When I first received my spiritual name, there was so much branding out there with my name, Wendy, which Wendy actually means friend. That I just kept using both of them. But I'm thinking about moving this to calling this channel the Sajdah channel. I welcome your thoughts on that. But I'm growing into it and growing in that direction. That's just something that I'm thinking about. So anyway, welcome this morning. Congratulations to those of you who, after our conversation yesterday, signed up to become a part of the Financial Trauma Bootcamp. And I want to say something about that before we get into our conversation on corporate governance, because it all kind of ties together. We have generations, unfortunately, in our community of poverty and lack. That idea of lack and living in a state of subtraction was beat into us for 400 years. And then coming out of that, we're still generations from that trying to find a way to live an abundant life. And so there's a collective energy around financial trauma that impacts all of us, no matter who you are, or even if your family just coming right up out of slavery and into Reconstruction became very abundant, you still have to deal with the collective consciousness of financial trauma, meaning that you have people in your family that may see you a certain way if you have money. You have people in your family that may see you a certain way if you don't have money. You have people in your circle, in your family, who are always competing against you. These are all reactions to this financial trauma. You have the crabs in the barrel. You have people that get a couple dollars and finally feel like they better than the next person, or that maybe they're just as good as the next person. Just all this old stuff. Then you have life that be lifing that happens to us that causes financial devastation, like divorce, like a loss of your job, unemployment. Something happens where you make a mistake and you get a severe punishment, like your time taken away from you. And now you're re-entering back into the community with certain restrictions on what you can do. And you're really forced to go into business for yourself, but then it has to be a certain type of business. So there's all of these financial traumas that we're dealing with as a people. And so what I want to help us do is to shine light on some of this stuff. Not only shine light on how we should be setting our businesses up and what we should be thinking about in business, but shining light on the stuff that's inside of us that we got to work on getting rid of. And one of the things, if you've ever done a money psychology or a money relationship coaching session with me, you'll know that we start off talking about money is just energy. And that we have to reconcile our belief and our faith, right, with our ability to have a better relationship with money. For a lot of us, it's two different things. We're faithful, we love, we go to church, we pray, but our prayer is conditional. Even down to this show. I start every show off that I have with a prayer from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I can't tell you how many people DM me or say something like, well, so what's that prayer about? Or people who say to other people, they don't always say it to me. Well, why would she have him praying at the beginning? Why would you be mad about anybody praying? That's, again, shows your hypocrisy when it comes to spirituality. And it also shows your hypocrisy when it comes to money. And so one of the things we talk about, and we're going to go into in the financial trauma boot camp, is that money hates hypocrites. And we're going to dig deep into walking into our inheritance, understanding what we showed up on the planet to do, understanding how money plays a role in our quest to be free, in our quest to have more, our quest to have a desire. And for me, my spirituality is deeply tied to my work in shining a light on some of these financial traumas that we are navigating through. So one of the concepts we're shining a light on today is corporate accountability. You know, you all know we've been talking for, I think, the last 3 or 4 weeks now about corporate governance. And so we're going into some of those principles. And so today we're going to talk about corporate governance. We're going to talk about corporate accountability. And what does corporate accountability mean? So much I want to say. You know, we are taught, no, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it. 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 I'm going to save it for the financial trauma boot camp. I was going to talk about the lake of fire and stuff like, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save this lesson interaction with the financial trauma boot camp. Save it, save it, save it, save it. That's what I'm telling myself. Let's save it. Shift my palette a little bit so I can save it. Okay. We're going to be working on epigenetics. So use the QR code, okay, to sign up for the financial trauma boot camp. It is only $88 per household. $88 per household. Those of you who got the deal for $188, you got a free coaching session. But that deal's over with. And so now it's just $88 per session. And we're working to bring some subject matter experts to you just so that we can work on, you know, as a people, getting this financial devastation cooled in our community. Okay. You see me struggling to stay on topic here because, ooh. All right. So now, what is corporate accountability? What is it? Corporate accountability. Corporate accountability, there's a simple definition, but it's really a very deep concept. And many of us that work in the corporate world, whether we have jobs, a small job or a big job, a lot of us are not familiar with the principles of corporate governance or the principle of corporate accountability. Corporate accountability simply means that companies, the definition is up here on the screen, companies are accountable not only to their financial stakeholders. We learned early in this series who our stakeholders are. Financial stakeholders can mean owners, stockholders. It could be a number of things. Go back and listen. We talked about stakeholders, but also to others, such as their employees, those in the community, and the general public. So when a company goes public, okay, and they have their annual financial audit, all of that audit is not numbers based. There is a review of the tone at the top of the corporation. We talked about that. And there is a review of their corporate governance. And so it talks about all of the controls and all the things that we've been talking about in this series. And corporate accountability is actually one of them. You don't hear a lot about it unless there's a disaster, right? Like a big oil spill. And then the company will come out and they will have their corporate accountability statements, and they'll have their corporate accountability offers and owners and attorneys and all of these people who come out and will put together a statement and they'll take certain actions. A lot of companies just straight up simply ignore their responsibility and their corporate accountability responsibility. I guess you could say it that way. Many of them ignore that. So they will, and this is a big thing right now in government, right? You got antitrust issues happening. This is why this election is very important, because you have a lot of companies out here violating antitrust laws. And I think we may do a show on corporate antitrust so that you understand what that means, creating monopolies, putting smaller businesses out of business. There's a lot of lawsuits that you see the DOJ, the FTC, that they're waging. I think there was one against Google recently. There's one right now against grocery store chains, trying to prevent them from creating a monopoly and doing things like price gouging. These are the kinds of topics that we should be questioning our candidates about. Things like corporate accountability and what are we going to do to enforce it? Because a lot of companies will introduce goods and services, especially into marginalized communities, and this happens around the world, that are bad for people's health, that pollute the air, that pollute the water. These things are not legal. They are illegal, especially and specifically for companies that are publicly traded. Okay. And specifically for companies that are governmentally regulated, and for companies that receive and have government contracts. And that's a lot of your big businesses out here. Well, I think that as small businesses, when we go into business, when we begin to introduce these good, much needed goods and services into our community, it's important that we are equally, if not more, accountable to our community, especially for those of us as conscious entrepreneurs, because we don't want to go out here and mimic the same business models that have abused and taken advantage of us for so many years. So this concept of corporate governance is often twisted and manipulated. Oftentimes twisted and manipulated. And it's very interesting to see it when you understand the concept, to watch the news or pay attention to some of these articles and see how they're blatantly and openly violating that principle. There's a precedent that has been set, and I'm going to call it the corporate world. But in the corporate world, where certain principles and certain rules apply to certain people, but not to other things. And there's oftentimes this deceptive intelligence that leads the way. Simple case in point, many of the people who were slave owners who kidnapped us from Africa and brought us here on the ships, they named their ships Jesus. They were required to be very knowledgeable about the Bible. They were required to be accountable to their stakeholder, and one of the stakeholders they believed was God. So this level of deception has existed since the creation of this form of capitalism on this side of the world. It's very deep and very interesting. And then we went through a phase, if you ever watched the series, The Men Who Built America, and you study, where we went through a phase where people who were marginalized, but who were not Black, began to rise up and wage war and say, wait, you can't treat us like them. And so there was that whole movement. Well, we're gonna cover some of these topics on our Tuesday morning show. We're gonna cover this antitrust. We're gonna talk about the Federal Trade Commission so that you understand what their role is. The challenge, though, with them right now is that they're so busy and there's so many cases. And oftentimes, unless a case gets a lot of press, they can't even deal with it. And who knows what's going to happen in the future if those agencies in the federal government are going to even be able to continue to exist to do the work that they have been able to do. Okay, so it's going to be on us as individuals to make sure that we direct our dollars to companies that are corporately responsible and being accountable to us. It's going to be up to us that are building small businesses, that we are accountable to our community and to certain principles, and that we don't use this level of deceptive intelligence and say, we're accountable only if you have a certain skin color or only if you have a certain religion. You have people who are, quote unquote, highly religious, people who are Muslims who come into the Black community and sell pork. So it's like, okay, we don't eat pork in our community, but we don't care. We'll sell it to y'all. You have people who come here and they may be Muslims, they may be Christians, and they don't drink, but they open liquor stores and sell liquor in our community. And they create advertising and ads and do all kind of things to get us addicted to a substance that their religion forbids them from. We're not trying to be those kind of people. See, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us to get up and do something for self, he did not teach us to treat people a certain way depending upon who they are and what background they came from. He didn't say, okay, you can do well by your community, but you can abuse other people. You have no history, no record of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad ever conducting himself like that. In fact about it, he always took the best of the best from our community and offered opportunities. You all heard me read what he did for the 1968 delegation from Georgia, Democratic delegation from Georgia who wanted to come to the DNC. You've heard me talk about countless stories of people saying, man, he funded our organization. He saved our home. Levels of generosity and accountability that are known and that have built a reputation in the community that is really unmatched to this day. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in teaching us the principles and the life and showing us how to love the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, has done the exact very same thing. So this is why I say, when we talk about the Black Muslim Business Directory, that we are some of the most investment-worthy, creative entrepreneurs on the planet. You know why? Because we're not adopting these levels of discrimination that are so part of the fabric of the capitalist society that we live in. We're not adopting that as we set up our businesses and as we go in and do business. Are we concerned about our community? Absolutely. Are we concerned about making sure that our dollars circulate in our community? Absolutely. Are we concerned about buying Black and buying Black Muslim? Absolutely. But are we abusing people? Are we planning to introduce goods and services into other communities and taking advantage of their conditions? Absolutely not. We in no way are taught that. And that is a complete violation of who we are as a people. So you won't see us practicing Islam over here and then saying, okay, I'm going to open up a liquor store, or I'm going to sell weed. I've seen people who, you go into their store and they got prayer rugs and stuff in the back, but they selling heroin in the front. It's hypocrisy. Or, anyway, anyway, let me stay on topic here. We're talking about corporate governance, corporate accountability. Corporate accountability simply means that companies are accountable not only to their financial stakeholders, but also to others such as employees, those in the community, and the general public. Okay. So you can't open a sweatshop here in America. You cannot open a business and pay people less than minimum wage, or abuse them and put all kind of weird restrictions on their ability to gain promotion or even get a paycheck. You can't do that here in America. There's a certain corporate accountability that you have to your employees. And let me tell you something. This is where a lot of small businesses make big mistakes. And I'm just going to say it because oftentimes you got owners who are preying on employees, who offer jobs, offer opportunities that become a lifeline for that person. You may have a woman who's a single parent, taking care of her children, probably got a responsibility of taking care of a man at home too, who may be in a position where he's struggling to get a job because maybe he's made some mistakes in life. So she's got a heavy burden. She goes to work for you. You take advantage of her and make her think that you're going to change her life. She starts having relations with you. And then when you meet somebody else that looks better, or because you got somebody at home, you start dogging her and making her feel like her promotion is going to be impacted. Her paycheck is going to be impacted. You cannot do that in America. That's illegal. And you should not be doing that principally in general. And you may not realize that's illegal, but if you work for a company that is publicly traded, a company that is regulated by the government, any government entity, or you're receiving government funding, you cannot be up in there messing around with your staff and dangling their paycheck or their promotion or their quality of life at work over their head, all because you want to get your rocks off. That's not corporate accountability. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. And this is the kind of stuff that we got to tease up out of our businesses. And we got to make sure that as small business owners, we're not doing that kind of thing. And I don't mean to single out men in this case, because you got women business owners that are doing it too, but it's very heavily prevalent with male business owners. And I'm going to tell you something, brothers. If you business and you're in a business and most of your staff is women, get you somebody that can be a buffer between you and those employees, because a lot of those women as well have come up in an environment where if they do a few little unsavory things, they can get a couple of dollars. And you might end up creating this beautiful harem of women that do anything for you, that you get them to do anything for you. You know, you might be able to create that, but it's only a matter of time before it's going to take you down. It's only a matter of time before one of those women are going to take you down, or your energy as you navigate around the world is going to attract the wrong things to you, and you're going to end up getting taken down. So you have a corporate accountability to your employees to make sure they're safe, to make sure that they have a certain environment, to make sure that they're protected. Did you know that? You might have a dangerous job that you got to do, but you have to try to protect them to the best of your ability. That's the reason why a lot of these companies that have corporate stakeholders that are public or government, you will see them talking about safety standards. They'll make you take a safety class. because they have a responsibility to make sure you are safe. All right. Let's go on to the next point. Corporate accountability maintains that businesses should be held responsible for the impact of their actions on society and the environment. Okay. So when you go into business, don't just think I'm just this small business person. Be accountable to your community. And sometimes it's hard, right? Because some of us, let's say you own a bakery, and you know that diabetes and cardiovascular disease is rampant in our community. And if you got eyes, you can look up and look at most of the people who's probably coming into your business don't need to be coming in the bakery. But you making money off of it. So it's very difficult to be responsible. Very difficult. But you got to find a way. You got to find a way. You have to find a way to be responsible and to be accountable. And I keep holding back on this. I'm going to tell you at the Financial Trauma Bootcamp why it is incumbent upon you and I to be responsible to the community, even if we are selling something that we know we might tend to overindulge in. I'm not saying stop selling it, but you got to find a way to be responsible. Excuse me. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm not going to say it why, because a lot of y'all came here to talk about learn about a corporate accountability. And that's going to take me into another spiritual conversation about Master Fard Muhammad and all of that. But anyway, let's keep going here. Accountability is the practice of being held to a certain standard of excellence. Now, Black excellence is all the rage, right? Where we are constantly talking about our Black excellence and blah, blah, blah. But there's a standard of Black excellence. And I don't know that we all really understand or even think about what that standard of excellence really is. And so one of the things that we do on this show and on this network is try to help raise our levels of excellence, our standards, raise our standards. Why? Because most of us only know business from the standpoint of what we've seen, either what we've seen in our community, which many of us know that a lot of that's bad business, people coming into our community selling bad food, bad liquor, bad services. So a lot of us only know business from that standpoint. A lot of us only know business from a corporate standpoint. And there are good things that we can tease out of our corporate experience, but there are also bad things or things that need to be tweaked and business models that need to be upgraded. Okay. So accountability is the practice of being held to a certain standard of excellence. And like I said, the question becomes, who's going to hold you to that standard of excellence? Okay. Who is going to hold you to that standard of excellence? If you are a conscious entrepreneur, you are going to hold yourself to that standard of excellence. All right. But, and a lot of companies do. I won't say, there's a lot of companies out here who are very, very accountable, very, very responsible, that have standards of excellence that they hold themselves to. A lot of companies. But in addition to that, if you are highly regulated, meaning if you're in healthcare, there are certain standards of excellence that come with the territory that are required of you in order to maintain your license, in order to maintain your compliance with the regulation. If you own, let's say, senior housing and it's HUD housing, there is compliance. That compliance is designed to hold you accountable to a certain standard of excellence. Okay. If you are in any type of financial services, Okay, if you're a financial advisor, you sell insurance, you do anything related to money, there are certain standards of excellence, and the company that you hold your license with is likely going to have a compliance department. Okay, um, if you get government funding, so let's say you have a business and you all are funded by the state government, the local government, the county government, the federal government. There are certain rules of compliance that you are going to have to be aligned with in order to continue to be in good standing and maintain that contract. So accountability is the practice of being held to a certain standard of excellence. And those standards are defined by who your stakeholders are. Okay. Um, there are 3 C's. Some people say 5 C's, but we're going to stick with the 3 C's. 3 C's of corporate accountability. It's character, courage, and commitment. All right. Character, courage, and commitment. Let's see. I've been ignoring the chat. I see y'all down here. I see you, Sister Betty. She said, Happy Tuesday. Thank you, sis. I see you, Servant Nasir. I see you, Brother Robert 11X. Walaikum salam. He said he absolutely loves this platform. Thank you, sir. May Allah continue to bless you as well. Thank you, and thank you. All right, so let's keep going here. Okay, we're talking about the 3 C's of accountability: character, courage, and commitment. Some textbooks would tell you that there are 5 C's. We're just going to cover 3 today. Character is one that I started talking about when I started talking about holding ourselves accountable, if you will, and having a certain standard of excellence within ourselves, governing ourselves. Okay. Let me read to you a definition of character. Character provides the ideal and expected values and associated behaviors that will enable us to live and lead with honor. Okay. Character provides the ideal and expected values and associated behaviors that will enable us to live and lead with honor. Okay. So when I talked about personal accountability, when I talked about people being Muslim but selling pork, okay, that says something about your character. Okay. Why are you selling pork when you don't even eat it yourself? Why are you selling cigarettes and you know what it's done to our community? Because I've worked in healthcare and seen the devastation that happens from cigarettes. I would never sell cigarettes. Plus, I don't smoke. I believe that it's wrong. So I would not compromise my character and sell cigarettes. Okay. I watched 90% of our patients in a vascular surgery center be people who smoked. And the thing that's messed up about smoking is I've had people tell me that it was harder for them to stop smoking than it was for them to stop doing crack. And you have people who start smoking, especially in Maryland, where that's Marlboro country. People started smoking, especially back in the day, at a very, very early age. People would say, I started smoking at 12. I stopped when I'm 20. Or I remember one lady say, I started smoking at 12. I stopped when I was about 30. Well, now she's 70 and she's suffering from cardiovascular disease. And she said, it can't be from smoking because I ain't smoked in 40 years. Yeah, you messed your vessels up back then. And then the other parts of your lifestyle, your diet and your behavior didn't support the repair of those vessels. So through age, through wear and tear, through continued injection of poison into your body, it's just a cocktail. And so here we are today. So for me, I would never sell cigarettes. That's part of my personal accountability. That's just there's a lot of things that I would not sell, but that's just me personally. There's things that are not illegal that people sell that just, for me, I personally wouldn't go into and sell, just because I've been exposed to the devastation that some of these things cause. All right. So we're talking about character, courage, and commitment as the 3 C's of accountability. All right. Courage is the next one. Courage, they say, is the corporate definition is, it is essential to living up to our character ideas. Without it, we will fold, blah, blah, blah. They talk about that. But see, courage is, let me just give you courage from just a non-textbook standpoint. Courage is when you are afraid of doing something. You're afraid of something, but you push through it anyway. Okay? A lot of us, going back to our financial trauma and the financial trauma boot camp, a lot of us are experiencing financial devastation, and we're unable to break the cycle of struggle and poverty in our families because we don't have the courage to do so. I'm going to say it again. Many of us are dealing with generational poverty, and we don't believe it because we think, well, my house is better than Big Mama and them house was. They was living in that old house downtown. But let's talk down south. Let's look at the conditions then and where they lived, and look at the conditions now and how you live. You may have a better house, but you still might be struggling. You still might be living paycheck to paycheck. You still are not in a position where money is not a factor. You're still in a position where you got to work from can't see morning to can't see night just to pay for your house and keep your children happy. Why is it that we can't break that cycle? A lot of it is because we don't have the courage. And even those of us as so-called spiritual people, we're stuck on a hamster wheel, and we're heavy spiritually when it comes to finances because we don't really have the courage to step out and do for self. We're worried about what somebody's going to say. We're worried about how we're going to look. We're worried about our position in the church, in the mosque, in the sorority, in the fraternity, in the community. We're scared to let somebody see us working hard. See, you got to create some kind of movement in order for something to happen. How many phone calls did you make today to sell that service, that good or service? How many phone calls did you make? How many people did you tell? Or are you just walking around like people supposed to just read your mind and know what you do and what you selling and how you do it? And then you go home to your wife or to your husband or to your family, to your children, and you can't take care of basic things. Why can't you do that? Because it's a courage issue there. And you might not believe me, but if you book a coaching session with me, I will show you. I don't care how impactful you are as a person within your organization or who you think you are. I will show you a courage issue that is blocking you from being accountable to your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Your family, your children, your wife, your husband, whoever it is that you are responsible for taking care of financially, those are your stakeholders. But there's a courage issue there. And it might be deep down inside. You might be the biggest Bible thumping person on the planet, and you like, ain't no way in the world. I got faith bigger than a mustard seed. At least that's what you think. And if nothing else, there's something going on up here. It's the way you think, the way you move, the way your mind works. Even if the courage issue is your heart, mind, reconciliation is usually a courage issue. And I stand on that. I've never been proven wrong on that by anybody who comes and books a session with me. And we have a conversation, and we will uproot a courage issue, some insecurity that we don't have the courage to face. Something we don't have the courage. I'm gonna give you an example. No, it's not. Well, yeah. When I was deciding whether or not to move to Maryland to help build these healthcare institutions, I was living in Chicago, and I was talking to my cousin. I was talking two people. No, it was three people that pushed me and either talked directly about courage or gave me an example about courage. Because I was used to being here in Chicago. I was based in Chicago. I would just travel, but I was coming back, and something was saying to me that this next phase in your development, you got to make a move that you maybe didn't plan on making. And it always said to me, you'll be back to Chicago, because Allah put it in my spirit to make this home base. This is headquarters, right? And but you got to go for a minute. And I was afraid, but I was not admitting that I was afraid. I was afraid because I never felt like the area resonated with my spirit, but I was using deceptive intelligence by over analyzing the situation. And I remember calling my brother, and he said, fuck it. If it don't work, just come back. And I thought it was so powerful. It was simple, but it was so powerful. I remember talking to my stepsister, may Allah be pleased with her. And she counseled me, and she said, sis, what are you afraid of? And it hit me, and I said, oh, I ain't scared. I travel. I ain't worried about it. She said, no, you scared of something. And I was like, whoa. And so I had to go deep into what it was that I was afraid of. And I had to find the will and the courage to push through that. I was afraid that the move was taking me off of what I thought that I was divinely guided to do. I grew up in Nebraska. I wanted to live in Chicago my whole life. When I got to college, it was so tied in that all my friends were from Chicago. In fact, all my friends were from the west side of Chicago. And it was like everybody I attracted in my life, in my adult life, that meant anything to me, that had any level of significance, was a Chicagoan. And I couldn't, I have friends who moved to Kansas City. I have friends that moved to San Francisco. My brother moved there. I have friends who moved to Texas. I have friends that moved all over. But, and if you knew anything about Chicago in the 90s, it was not attractive. Okay. They talk about violence and crime now, but baby, in the 90s, Chicago was not attractive. I couldn't even get anybody to come visit me. I think maybe my family came up here once, but I couldn't even get people to come visit me. Chicago was not the Chicago we enjoy now in the 90s. But for some reason, I was pulled there, and I was afraid when I was feeling the spirit telling me, you got to do something in Maryland. I was worried about it. So she counseled me. And then my cousin Joiselle started talking to me. She said to me, you come from a long line of courageous women. And I was like, what? And she said, your grandmother got on the train in 1945 with a few dollars in her pocket to go up north. She got on that train by herself, not knowing what was going to happen to her, if she would be raped or killed or hurt. So many women lost their lives and all kind of stuff during those transports coming up north because they were by themselves. A lot of them got to places like Chicago and had to go into suffrage houses because the people that they thought they were going to meet or hook up with weren't true to their word, or when they got up here, the conditions weren't what they thought it was going to be. That's why you have like the Phyllis Wheatley House and the Elam House here in Chicago. Those were women's suffrage homes because we were not allowed to go to the Hull House or places like that where other women who were suffering went to. So she said, your grandmother got on that train by herself to meet and connect with people who related to a man that she had fallen in love with, who she only saw a couple times before that. They started writing letters. So there was no FaceTime. She didn't see them. She didn't know them. It took a lot of courage. They didn't even know what she looked like. She had to put a flower in her hair. And my mom tells a story all the time about how they said, well, how will we know you? She said, I'll be the one with the carnation in my hair. So that's how they knew who she was. And she's this beautiful woman, Creole, long, pretty hair, skin just popping, amazing. 1945, and she gets on the train, dressed up. You know how they dressed up when they traveled by herself and went to Omaha, Nebraska to meet up with a man's family. And mind you, he was not even there. They had been writing letters and talking about getting married. He was in the Korean War. So when he came home, he saw her there. And she just talked to me about the courage. And I was like, oh, man, okay, I got to do it. And from that point on, I started to embrace courage and embrace fear and embrace things that maybe I didn't necessarily want to do. And moving into our next point, which is the 3 C's of accountability, which is commitment. And I started making a commitment, okay, to being courageous, to being accountable to myself, and making certain commitments to myself to honor myself. Okay. So I wanted to, we are just about out of time. And so I wanted to make sure that I covered this as thoroughly as I can. Yes. Brother says, you're totally correct. I started my business with a $70 loan 32 years ago. Praise be to Allah. That's a lot of courage. This is a whole lot of courage and faith and a little bit of knowledge. Yeah, a lot of courage. And so that's what corporate accountability is, really a spiritual concept, if you understand it right. And if you don't look at it like something that you just got to get around and get over with. It's a very, very spiritual concept. And when we build businesses, if you build businesses with me, we are going to be very intentional about creating spiritual principles that we fold into our policies and our procedures and the way in which we move and the way in which we operate and function. And it's a way that we infuse out these great teachings into our businesses. And I'll talk to you about how to do that. I'll teach you and help shine. I don't like to say teach you how to do it, but I'll help you shine a light on how you can take these principles that you're learning in your spirituality and your religion, and for us, our supreme wisdom, and taking that and layering it into our businesses so that we can guarantee our success, and so that we don't create business models that are like the old business models that we're all trying to get away from. All right, family. So with that, I thank you all for listening this morning. I pray that you got something out of it. don't forget, I'm going to try to figure out how to do something fun for us on Friday, and you guys can celebrate with me. I got two birth anniversaries coming up, August 30th and September 9th. So from that period, from August 30th to September 9th, I celebrate every single day. And I'll tell you what that period means. That's my spiritual period. I'll tell you what that period means and what all of that means and why I do it that way. And I also want to make sure you guys sign up for Financial Trauma Bootcamp. The QR code is right there. Right now, it's only $88 per household. Okay. You all are getting a deal, $88 per household. So use the QR code. Make sure you sign up. We're going to bring some subject matter experts in, and I'm going to give you all this presentation that I've been holding back on. And it's going to really help us to tweak our mindset when it comes to money, financial trauma, financial devastation, all of these things that are rampant in our community. And let's see what else we got. Okay. It's all faith. It's all spiritual. Thank you for making that comment, brother. All right. So with that, family, the Cash App is here. Give a love offering. I do have a couple of families that need sponsorships. So here's another deal. Spirit just told me to give you all. If you all sponsor a family, and the way you're going to have to do it is go out on you can do it one or two ways. Go out, use the QR code, go out there, register your own family, and then you can Cash App Sajdah Enterprises and put in the subject, sponsor a family, another $88. I do have a couple of families that I work with a community organization. I have a sister that has, she has a newborn. She has a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I am working with her through an organization I volunteer with to help her deal with financial trauma and financial devastation that has been rampant in her life because of lifestyle, generational stuff that's been happening to her and just the situation that she's in. And so she would love a sponsorship. And I have a couple of families like that. So it's only $88 per household because I want everybody to bring their children, sit their children around. Business and entrepreneurship has to be introduced into our families at an early age, and it's never too late. Okay. All right. So with that, family, love you all very much. You got 2 assignments: Financial Bootcamp, Cash App, Sajdah Enterprises. And then the big assignment is to make sure that we are corporately accountable to the levels of excellence that we apply to ourselves. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you to do good. Don't wait to see what somebody else is going to do good. And if they're going to do good, you make sure you do your part. All right, family. Love you all. Peace and blessings. See you all Thursday. All right. And I may go live. Tomorrow. But I'll let you guys know because there's a couple things that we need to talk about and go over that have been coming in real strongly that I want to share. All right. Spread the word. Peace and blessings.